Hey there, what's going on, the Whiskey Cove? And on today's episode, we deep dive into Elijah Craig and we hit up their Elijah Craig 18 single barrel. Run that video. Alrighty then folks, let's get into this video, shall we? And if you're not a subscriber, hit that button down below. With that being said, today we're going to deep dive into Elijah Craig 18. This is a single barrel product, and this proof or ABV is 45% alcohol by volume or 90 proof. This was bottled on 7/7/21, has a nice ring to it there. And like I said, this is a single barrel product, so there's going to be some variations to maybe what I'm trying to what you're trying back home. Unless it was bottled on the same date, then it could be the same barrel there. So let's take a little look at the bottle here. As you can see, typical Elijah Craig writing on the front there. And then we also see the aged 18 and then the single barrel etched into kind of like that italicized font. It's kind of like a really strange bottle. It's kind of like this really like oval looking bottle. If you're familiar with like the barrel bottles, it's kind of similar to that as well. It has a really interesting card here, as do a lot of Elijah Craig products. This goes on to talk a little bit about Reverend Elijah Craig, who was the individual who started Elijah Craig. So I wanted to do this review because I was going through Facebook and I was just going through some posts, and I saw a post come up from Bardstown Fire Department, and they were talking about a big blaze. There was like an anniversary of a big blaze that they had at the Heaven Hill distillery, the Heaven Hill fire. And I'll put some of those photos on the screen now, and it really kind of takes you away just how big that fire was, especially the one when you can see this up on the hill, and these flames are huge, like twice as big as the rick houses, and I'm sure that they must be really hot. I can't remember where that fire was, but I know that they was kind of celebrating that anniversary there. So then, let's get this bottle poured and then let's get into this whiskey here. So straight away, nice bottle pop there. And then you also have a nice real bottle cork here. So just looking straight off the bat, you're getting kind of like this mahogany, kind of almost like a red ale kind of color. So it's kind of brown, but kind of like the redness definitely shines through. No particulates in my glass. There's no particulates in the bottle as well. It's nice and clean. Also as well, it does look quite thick and viscous. Again, this is only 45% alcohol, so it's not too much of a higher proof. So a lot of the notes are going to come from the age of this whiskey, because like I said, it was been sitting in that barrel for at least 18 years. So then let's go in for a nose on this one. As you can imagine, lots of oak flavor here. So what I will say is, when I first got this bottle, I first cracked it, I didn't quite like what I could taste and what I could nose from the whiskey. But I will say, the couple of months that I've had this whiskey has just opened up, and it's become a bit of a bouquet on the nose, because you get some of that wood oak note, a touch of like that oak spices there as well, and then also I get this lovely cherry note. It's kind of like I wouldn't go as far as to say like a cherry lozenge or like a red cherry. It smells more like a maraschino cherry, so like that, not so much the candy cherries, but like kind of like that deep, dark, potent cherry note. It's very inviting as well. The wood on the oak is not off-putting at all. Some folks say that it's over-oaked. Maybe you might get some single barrels, but for me, this is a perfect balance between age, proof, and kind of those floral and sweet notes, coupled with the cherry as well. I'm getting a touch of rye spice there as well, and you can definitely nose a little bit of pepper coming from that. So then let's go in for a taste on this. So straight away, I am getting a touch of heat, which kind of dissipates pretty fast, as it is a little bit of a lower proof. And then the oak and the oak spice kind of takes over from the heat. So you could almost say there was a little bit of spicy or a little bit hot throughout, but I feel like that's just kind of like the oak spice and that rye spice kicking in there as well. You get a beautiful kind of dark maple barrel char note there right up in the front, where that sweetness kicks in with the heat. And that kind of runs right through the whiskey as well, and that's a really nice and fond note. I'm still getting a touch of that cherry. Tastes a little bit bitter from the oak, The best way I can describe it is probably more of like a walnut. If you've ever eaten like a walnut nut, and you've kind of bit the skin off the walnut, and you kind of get like almost like a touch of bitterness from that skin. It's kind of like that, but it doesn't detract too much away of what's going on here. But there is a lot going on here. Let's go in for another taste here. I'm not picking up any peanut. Some of the Elijah Craig's, I definitely do pick up some peanut, and some Evan Williams products, I also pick up some peanut. I'm not getting that from this. Again, there's plenty of wood. There is that tiny little bit of bitterness, kind of like that walnut bitterness. But the sweetness just really does a good job of balancing that out. So let's pick apart the finish here on this Elijah Craig 18. So this is quite a long finish. What I tend to find with quite higher aged bourbons in particular, you do get longer finishes, and it's usually like a longer dry and like a spicy finish as well, just because they spent so much time in the barrel with the oak. And again, I'm getting that on this. You're getting again some of that oak spice coming through, but then you get like a lot of kind of like a leather note that kind of dries that out as the sweetness has gone away. Also, again, that cherry is still there, and this also does a good job at coating the mouth as well with the sweetness, and then towards the end on the finish, the leather kind of takes over and dries out your tongue and dries out your palate there. All in all, a very complex whiskey. I can see possibly how folks would say it could be a little bit over oaked with kind of like that little walnut bitterness note, but I actually think it does a good job of complementing the kind of like the maple sugar note that I had in the beginning, and kind of like the cherry note throughout. A really well balanced whiskey in my opinion. So what we like to do on this channel, we like to give a rating out of 100 and value for money. So let's do value for money first. So I paid about $170 for this bottle of whiskey. This is by no means not a cheap bottle of whiskey. Not only is it not cheap, it's not easy to find. That being said, it is a 18-year whiskey or 18-year bourbon that's not normally on end of year whiskey lotteries. Generally you can find them. I know that Heaven Hill Distillery do release some throughout the year, and if you take into consideration maybe other whiskeys that are around this age, you're talking like Pappy Van Winkle 20 or 15, which are just completely hard to find. Again, the Elijah Craig barrel proofs are usually about 12 years, so that's a lot less than this. You also have the Dickel single barrel, the 15 years, so that's quite an old whiskey, but you do not get some of like a lot of the barrel notes that you get with this. And then just thinking off the top of my head, some of the older whiskeys, I'm struggling to pull some right off here, but I haven't got any here, so maybe Russell's Reserve 13 is pretty close as well. And then I know that Four Roses do some kind of like funky picks where that age definitely does get up there. I think they do a lot of like charity picks and stuff, which you'll see from time to time, but don't bet on trying to find one of those. So that being said, this is probably the oldest bottle of whiskey I have in the Cove at 15 years old. We also have a Blue Note 17 there, which is apparently is distillate. So maybe that's a video on the horizon. Elijah Craig 18, Dickel 15-year single barrel, and then the Blue Note 17. That could be a good video. With that being said, what I'm trying to say is you generally don't see many 18-year-old bourbons sitting around. So even for $170, $180, it's not terrible value for money in that sense. However, it's still a lot of money, and it's still coming in at 45% alcohol by volume. So for that value for money, I'll give it a C. So then rating out of 100, I'm gonna give this a solid 84. I think, like I was saying, there's a lot going on with those sweeter notes and those spicier notes, and you can really taste the age on this, and it's not overwhelming, it's not overpowering. It really comes in as a complete whiskey, and that's the reason why I'm giving it that rating. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, folks. Keep checking out the YouTube channel as we'll continue to put out more reviews, more tier lists, more blind battles. We have some really fun content coming up here, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. As we drink through the world's whiskeys, one glass at a time, cheers.